O Samson, wherefore art thou, Samson? Deny thy father and...
Knock it off! You've been quoting Shakespeare all day. Wait a minute, did you just wait for me to come back here so you could say that?
No, it's for my video.
You're making another one of these?
Hello, interwebs. My name is Francis X Files, and this is the X File.
Still taken.
Today we'll be talking about the theory that Shakespeare didn't exist.
Tell that one to my English teacher.
Title card! Aren't you gonna say something, Captain? This is usually the part where you start criticizing me.
Not right now, Francis. I want to hear how this plays out. Shakespeare not existing is a theory I actually believe in.
Wow! Captain! I may make a believer out of you yet! Let's go to Conspiracy Corner!
To be or not to be? That is the question. Shakespeare was. Sorry, interwebs. I was trying to make a little joke. I'm trying to say that he was real. Now you're probably saying to yourself, but Francis, you believe in a math theory? Of course not! Shakespeare did in fact exist, but he wasn't the genius everyone thought he was. In reality, every single one of his plays was based on an actual historical event. Shakespeare was nothing but an avid journalist. He was not intentionally trying to write plays. He was making a historical documentation. Elements of his texts were found to be incriminating to the church and monarchy, so they sent their agents to eradicate the evidence. Unfortunately, they failed in their task, and the best they could do was steal every single one of Shakespeare's documents. With these in hand, they hired the best writers and poets of the time to turn the stories into dialogue. They then sold the completed works to theaters under the pen name of William Shakespeare, and put them on as plays in the hopes of tricking the dumb peasants into believing that these events never existed. The worst part is, they succeeded! To this day, we still think of Shakespeare's stories as just that, stories! Romeo and Juliet were real, so were Hamlet, Ophelia, Macbeth, Othello, Viola, the fairies, and everybody else! But why would Shakespeare not say anything? These stories were a desecration of everything he stood for, right? Wrong! At first he did try to speak out against the plays as historically inaccurate, and proclaimed that many of the events depicted were in fact real. English society found him to be insane. But they liked the stories so much, they just ignored his apparent lunacy. When Shakespeare suddenly disappeared, the masses never questioned it, because the plays were still coming out. But where did Shakespeare go? What really happened was that the government locked up the real William Shakespeare in prison, so that he would never reveal their censoring of history. After many years, Shakespeare broke out of prison by digging a hole in the rock and covering it up with some kind of poster.
Wait a minute. That's just the ending of the Shawshank Redemption.
Spoilers! I haven't seen that one yet, Samson! Craig said it's the best movie ever, and you spoiled it for me!
What have you seen, Francis?
The original 3 Star Wars movies, and the Clone Wars cartoon. And maybe some other stuff. No time for that in this episode.
What about the prequels?
They're conspiracies, they didn't exist.
Or maybe you just didn't like them.
We were talking about Shakespeare. So yes, he broke out of prison and went on the run from the church and the government.
Historical records show that Shakespeare bought a house in London. He had a family. He had a theater company. If he was locked up, then how did all this stuff happen?
I thought you said he didn't exist!
I'm just asking legitimate questions to test your theory.
Okay, Samson. The government paid off his family and got all his stuff in Shakespeare's name to drive suspicion. Since the church had a lot to gain too, they falsified the record. They even came up with a fake will and death certificate.
I see where you're coming from, but there's a massive gaping hole in your theory, Francis. What happened to Shakespeare? He got out of prison, and then what? Just kept quiet?
Oh, this is my favorite part. The time-traveling hero Jacques F. Kennedy found Shakespeare and took him on as a companion. Watch my video about him here. The two of them went traveling through time, saving the world and following government conspiracies.
And now you lost me. There is no such person as Jacques F. Kennedy!
Samson doth protest too much, methinks. It's not like Shakespeare stayed with him forever. After an adventure just around the Middle Ages, Shakespeare had an opportunity to do what he always wanted to.
And that was...
Write a great comprehensive historical documentation that would stand the test of time.
Wait, you aren't seriously...
Yes! Shakespeare wrote the Bible. The most historically accurate document and best-selling book of all time.
I've heard before that the only original works in Western literature are Shakespeare and the Bible.
Same thing.
That doesn't even make any sense. If the church went against Shakespeare for revealing conspiracies against them, that means the Bible already existed. That means he always went back.
Samson. People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect. But actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective point of view, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Again with the Doctor Who stuff?
Kennedy-N, Samson. Dr. Kennedy-N. Alright, interwebs. What you doing, Samson?
No! Out, damn spot! Out, I say!
Alright, interwebs. This has been another episode of The X-Files. I'm Francis X. Files. Remember, the truth is in here.